Hi guys, my name is Nick Broughton and I'm a Randomfish. Hit that subscribe button and let's all be random fishes together, shall we? So, not that long ago, a friend of mine did a video on YouTube where she reviewed the Hobbit book. Spoiler filled, but whatever at this point. And honestly, I will leave a link to that down below in the description. Also a link to her channel as well to subscribe to, should you prefer to hear a book reviewer talking. Now, I have not had as much contact with Tolkien's world when I was younger as I would have liked to admit. Honestly, I am a fantasy fan, but growing up, all I really watched was Star Wars, Power Rangers, and a bunch of cartoons and stuff that were made for British TV. Obviously, I've reviewed a lot of British kids' TV shows recently, over the years, and frankly, that's just the way it always is for me. But Lord of the Rings, I watched the first one, and then I watched Two Towers, and then I watched Return of the King in the cinema, and I enjoyed them. I found them entertaining, I found them engaging, and I wasn't ready to tackle the books at that point, and after that, a friend of mine gave me access to The Hobbit. He told me that it would be an introduction into Tolkien's world and give me a bit of a feel about how he writes. And I did read it, and yeah, it was a big thing. But I can't really review the book because I don't really review books on this channel. I've done comic books occasionally, and I have tried to talk about them, but not really something that people really want to talk about. But the films, on the other hand, I can talk about them. All three of them are now released. They have extended editions on DVD and Blu-ray. They have been released out into the world, and they're there, and they're fair pickings. So, how do I describe the Hobbit trilogy? Why is it a trilogy? Okay, let's recap the plot, shall we? See, in The Hobbit, we get Bilbo Baggins. Ironically, the Hobbit. Bilbo Baggins is sent on an adventure with a company of 13 dwarves, along with Gandalf the Wizard. Gandalf the Grey, in this case, not Gandalf the White, as he would be in Lord of the Rings later on down the line in the second film. And Gandalf basically tricks Bilbo into accepting this adventure because he has gotten so used to living in his little hobbit hole with all of his comforts and everything else that he likes to have at home, that he doesn't really have much of a connection with the outside world as his ancestors did with what's called the Tooks. He came from two separate families, the Bagginses and the Tooks. And while the Bagginses were incredibly home-kept and very much didn't go out or do anything remotely, the Tooks had a bit more of an adventurous side, and honestly, Bilbo had to learn to accept this other side of him and accept this desire that he did have to go out on an adventure. Throughout the book, we see a bunch of things happen involving the dwarves and Bilbo, such as dealing with trolls, dealing with a warg attack, wargs I will explain in a minute, and eventually travelling to the mountain where the dwarves wanted to go. The dwarves wanting to reclaim a lost kingdom, the kingdom of Erebor, which had been taken over sadly by a dragon called Smaug. Now, honestly, the reason why Bilbo has been brought along at all is because he has the ability to sneak in anywhere because of how unique he is as a hobbit. Not only are hobbits less known to the wider part of Middle-earth at that point in time, hell, even when Frodo went out with the One Ring, they weren't that well known in the world. And honestly, Smaug has been sniffing dwarf smells for years now. Years. And the smell of a hobbit? Completely unknown to him. So Gandalf assumed that Bilbo would be the best choice to sneak in, make sure the treasure was okay, and then come back and just make sure the dwarves knew how to get in and sneak them in a way of getting past the dragon and ultimately destroying it. And making sure the dragon was dead if he, was dead. Which, at least in the films, that's how it's presented. It's very weird. But anyway, Bilbo ends up finding and speaking to Smaug, who ends up getting really annoyed at the dwarves for even trying to get in and laughing at Bilbo's stupidity for doing this. He then flies into the kingdom, to the little town, Lake Town, burns some of it down, is ultimately killed by some random nothing character in the book, we'll explain about him in a minute. Eventually leading to the dwarves retaking Erebor, having a bit of a disagreement with the humans and elves in the local area about sharing their treasure with them. A massive fight breaking out between the dwarves and the men and elves, at which point then orcs and whatnot come down, orcs and goblins and wargs all come down from the mountains, and they all have a massive fight. The eagles come in and help out as well, which is a very random moment. And we wake up as Bilbo later on, because he gets knocked out at some point during that fight, and he wakes up to discover that a load of the dwarves are dead. He then gets a little bit of the treasure for himself, because that was part of the deal of him signing on to help out with the adventure, and he goes home to discover that everyone thinks that he's actually dead and are trying to get rid of all of his earthly possessions. Okay. Kind of interesting, but okay. So, why 3 films? Because let me explain something to you here. There are certain things in that film, in those films anyway, that are added that don't really need to be added. At least, not in the same way that the films added them. Let's start with the big ones, shall we? Azog the Defiler. A pale white orc. He was in the book, but he was mentioned as being dead. And he was dead. There was no hint of him coming back. No semblance whatsoever of an enemy returning with a personal battle between him and Thorin that they have to sort out in the 3rd film. No. None of that. Why does this bug me? Well, if I'm going to be absolutely honest, Tolkien made it very clear, at least at the start of this, that The Hobbit was the first book that he was writing based in Middle-earth. He wrote it for kids, and he wrote it so that the kids could understand. And ultimately, I feel like this is how the film should have gone. I'm not saying that Azog should necessarily not have returned at all, but I would at least have the idea maybe that he was dead, and this was one of Thorin's great triumphs. That this wasn't a failure that he had to undo later on. And that's what it feels like. It also feels very interestingly that the film itself is going, do you remember this? Do you remember this shot from Lord of the Rings? Well, we can do it again, but this time in The Hobbit. Look at this. Ooh! We did the Lord of the Rings movies. Please be kind to us. We're The Hobbit, but we're the same as Lord of the Rings. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. No, you're not. The whole point of The Hobbit is that it was designed years before the Lord of the Rings. Second point I want to make about this in this rant. The ring. The one ring. In the beginning of Lord of the Rings, we learn that Bilbo finds the ring because he nicks it off Gollum. At least unintentionally nicks it off Gollum, I should say. And of course, we then cut to him being years younger than he possibly should be at this point in his life, uses the ring to escape, and leaves it to Frodo when he buggers off to Rivendell. Rivendell, I should say. When Frodo does return there, when he gets there with Sam and Aragorn and all the others, we learn pretty quickly that Bilbo has developed a bit of a fascination with the One Ring, and that's to do with the years that he had it after the events of dealing with the dragon. Do you really need to have the whole, the ring is like a drug that I must keep on wearing it, it is amazing, it's my ring, my ring, my ring. Okay. Copying some of the ring's ideas is good. But you know what? I thought the idea was that hobbits weren't affected as much by the dark magic because of who they were. Here's what I'm thinking. Bilbo should have done exactly what happened with Frodo. He should have heard something trying to compel him to put on the ring. Or something of that nature, not him instantly turning back into Gollum. Like, there's a reason as to why, for example, in the first Lord of the Rings film, that Bilbo is perfectly fine, and has a little bit of a snap at Gandalf, and then he snaps back to it without any hesitation whatsoever. If the ring had been on his finger for that amount of time, and been in his possession that amount of time, after what we saw in the Hobbit trilogy, Bilbo should be looking more like Gollum for this. He should be infinitely more dishevelled and skinnier and a bit more with the choking and the precious Gollum. But he's not. People, when you're making these types of films, I am not against foreshadowing future events. Believe me, I'm not. But you have to do it in a way that makes sense. Have Bilbo look at the ring every so often and have it be a bit of a moment. Because allow me to point out to you here, people, that another thing I'd like to make very abundantly clear at this point, Sauron was returning to power in Lord of the Rings. The reason why the Nazgûls got let out and the reason why the Nine were released and sent off into the Shire is because he could sense where the One Ring was and where he could go to get it. Sauron had built up enough power to get back what he wanted. He was not in a position to influence enough people to compel to give him back the ring at that point in the timeline. He can't have been. At least not in the way the movies are designing it. Hell, the way that the Desolation of Smaug has it, with Gandalf facing off against the Necromancer, who is revealed to be Sauron, spoilers, as he's there with the massive lizard's eye, which I still hate as an idea for Sauron, by the way. Why the hell is he a lizard's eye? Why is he more monstrous than he is an abstract or a sneaky SOB? I mean, that's kind of what I always thought Sauron was at this point in the damn game. But this is where it gets annoying. When Gandalf is stood there in Gundabad, and he sees the giant eye suddenly appear, I honestly thought that Sauron had returned to full strength. Like, I'm sorry, but the eye itself, it appears over the tower in Mordor, which I'm fine with. But the idea that Sauron is 100% strong enough to pull that off, even with the help of a necromancer? Nah. He shouldn't be strong enough to be putting that kind of crap out of him. In the books, you know what, I'm going to dive into Tolkien lore here. In the books, in the future books, in the appendices, if you will, we then get various stories about what the heck happened afterwards. Gandalf and the White Council go to Gundabad and take out the Necromancer without a problem. That's what's said here. So, why in the hell did we need to bring back Sauron into this? I thought the idea of The Hobbit was that it was about the dwarves and Smaug and Thorin being a little bit of a dick. Did it really need that kind of side plot going, look at this foreshadowing, isn't it amazing? Look at how great we are. Stop it. Tell the story. Don't. You can have certain bits from the appendices in, but not at the expense of putting the main plot to an absolute halt. No. Niet. Stop it. Whew. Anyway, look, the Ring of Power is an impressive thing, and it maybe, yes, have the signs of him being compelled to put it on. Yes, I'm fine with that. But don't make it seem as though Bilbo's turning into Gollum right away. No. When he stabs and he picks up the ring and goes, mine, and puts it in his waist, no, don't do that. Don't have that there. Come on, guys, you're better than that. I mean, not by much, but you're clearly better than that. Ugh. Moving on. So, let's talk about Martin Freeman, shall we? I liked him. He was good. He was funny. I actually did like him in this. I have nothing against him here. And, honestly, yeah. I enjoyed him in all three of these movies. He was a good actor, he played the part well, and he's successfully good at what he does. Now, in terms of the other characters, why is it that you felt the need to make them more how do I put this, conventionally handsome. Thorin I can just about understand because he's meant to be the brooding, badass good guy, if you will, in this book and in these films, and I'm fine with that. But Fili and Kili, really? You had to use one of the guys from Being Human in this? It's bad enough you had... Well, it's bad enough you had Wolverine from the Long Night. Yeah, it's a podcast. Try and find it sometime, it's awesome. But you know what? These films do have some good points. I mean, it's not without its problems, don't get me wrong, but... Okay. The scenery is still fantastic. The CG is still well done. I will say this, it was nice to see Christopher Lee playing Saruman again, and in a capacity that didn't make him a complete bad guy. I liked that idea. Sylvester McCoy, very well done. I always enjoy seeing him in things. Like I said, Martin Freeman, very good. Richard Armitage, yes, he was good. Benedict Cumberbatch's Smaug. A bit too dramatic. Like, OTT dramatic. I'm not asking for a complete tone down of his character. I'm asking for, like, a little bit of a turn of the volume of the dramatics of that. Because you should probably, you know... I mean, when he does that dramatic speech at the beginning of when he's burning Lake Town and talking to Bard, it's... What? Why? What? Why would you do that and not just kill the guy? I mean, dude, you're a dragon. You don't have to be this cocky about it, but you are a dragon. Burn him. Ugh. But let's move on to the two fun ones. Orlando Bloom as Bard and Legolas. No, wait, sorry. I'm sorry, well, no. Bard just looks like Orlando Bloom more than Orlando Bloom does. I'm sorry, I completely forgot that bit. Now, Orlando Bloom returns as Legolas in this. And, honestly, I like this. Because, little bit of a secret here, I did a play version of The Hobbit back in, I think it was 2008? Maybe? Maybe a little bit before then, a little bit after that, I'm not sure. But anyway, in 2008, around that time, I did a play version of The Hobbit. And Legolas was in that play. It was explained that his father was the king of the woodland elves. And... that's fine. I have nothing against Legolas being in this film, but why did you have to turn on his god mode again? I mean, in the second and third films of Lord of the Rings, it was pretty silly, but it was more a case of I was living in a little bit of denial because I could sit there and say to myself, well, he's improving his skills and has been improving his skills for centuries, and it's fine. The reason why he's this good is because he's practiced for so long. Yeah, but what he does in The Hobbit outshines even the Return of the King Legolas. And I'm sorry, but if you can outshine a version of your character that's meant to be in the future, where he's meant to have a lot more skill, you're kinda taking a back step there, guys. You didn't have to make Legolas, you know, the ultimate offering of all powerful elves. Also, one other quick thing, Hey, filmmakers and Peter Jackson, quite possibly, I'm not sure, but I really kind of want to leave you out of this because I do like you as a filmmaker. But I will say this, Peter Jackson's team, just in general, the writing team behind this, when you originally were writing this trilogy, did you think to yourself, yes, did you at any point decide, surf the web, looking for fan fiction about Legolas and Gimli getting together, written by really bad fanboys who were sitting in their basements, completely covered in Cheeto dust, going, yeah, this is funny. Or possibly some other kind of random stereotype that was possibly more attributed to that point in time, because frankly, it probably was more attended in time in 2002, 2003 than it ever was at any other time in life. But, look, when fanfics are written about certain characters, that's great. But you didn't have to take it and try to put it into the film. Yeah. Because that's all I see. When I see the female elf Link character, yes, she has a name, but I'm sorry, I can't take her seriously. Because she's flirting with a dwarf, and, you know, all I'm thinking is, as I sit there and I go, right, so you're going to put this in the film, are you? You're actively going to pursue this plot line. The idea of a dwarf having a little bit of a for an elf. Seriously? Okay, so is this all a lead up to a special X-rated version of the Lord of the Rings porno that I don't know about, where, you know, Legolas is actually played by a woman, and so she and Gimli start having, you know, amazing, powerful, you know, right next to Frodo or something as Sam's hugging him? Where did this come from? I mean, I know you want to try and give female elves a shot, and I have nothing against this. You know what? Female elves? Yes! Have them in there. I don't care. But why do you have to give them romantic subplots? This should not be a thing. Tolkien is given a little bit of a leeway here, because when he was writing at that point in time, it wasn't exactly mainstream to have women in prominent roles in literature. And you know what? Fair play to the guy. He was trying to tell a decent story. He probably just fell into his old patterns, and you know what? It worked out well for him. God bless to him and what he does. But, people, when you introduce female characters, you don't have to have them fall in love with male characters. That's all I'm saying. Have the female Link come in and kick ass as good as Legolas. Why not do that? Why not have her and Legolas on the same footing? Have Legolas say that he wants to get better than her and he will train every day if he has to, building up to his possibility of being a better than average marksman for the Lord of the Rings films, but have her still be a prominent, powerful character that girls and women can look up to. Now, I'm sorry, if you think that she was a good character, then you know what? My apologies. Please enjoy her on the screen. Please, I beg of you. But for me, something I wanted from that character anyway was a lot more than what I got. And it's kind of disappointing to see. It just is. But you know what? I've rambled enough. Frankly speaking, these films are not bad. They're not awful. They're made well, the CG is good, the casting is good. You know, like I said, with a few of my personal exceptions. Bard is given a much more interesting story here, although I feel like it's been copying Aragorn's story, but still, could be worse, I guess. I mean, at least it's Luke Evans, looking more like Orlando Bloom than Orlando Bloom does. I'm sorry, that's the last time I'm going to mention that, I swear. But, do I hate them? I don't like them. But that's the beauty of this world, and that's the beauty of you guys who watch that. You come here and listen to my opinion, great. But you know what? Make your own opinions. Watch the film, have an opinion, comment. Message me somehow on Instagram or Twitter, send me a tweet. Follow me on my Facebook page and talk to me about these films. Tell me what it is that you got out of them, because clearly I'm missing something. There's a few of these films that I enjoy certain moments in, but I can't enjoy the whole thing because the book keeps on creeping into my mind. Do any of you have a way of eliminating the book? Or do you have like a way of overriding your comparison noise? Because honestly, for a while now, it's been a long time to turn off my comparison noise. Part of the reason as to why I dislike Green Lantern so much, but I've reviewed that already. But, you know what? Rewatch the films. See how you feel. Honestly, that's all I can tell you. Have fun, my little random fishes. Random fish out.